The rain fell softly on the small town of Maplewood, Ohio, washing the streets clean but leaving one little girl sitting alone near a broken bus stop. Her name was Emily Carter, just 8 years old, holding a small brown teddy bear with one missing eye. Her clothes were wet, her shoes muddy, and her face pale from the cold. Next to her lay a note, a few words written in shaky handwriting. "I'll come back for you. Love, Mom." Emily read those words again and again, her small hands shaking. The cars passed by, people walked fast, but no one stopped. She looked down the road, hoping to see her mother's blue car. But hours passed, and the road stayed empty. When a police officer finally found her, Emily could barely speak. She just whispered, "My mom said she'll come back." But she never did. That night, Emily was taken to a children's shelter, a quiet, gray building that smelled like old paint and sadness. The lady at the desk gave her a blanket and a cup of milk. "Don't worry, sweetheart," she said kindly. "You're safe here." But Emily didn't feel safe. She felt abandoned. She stared at the ceiling all night, her teddy bear in her arms, whispering, "Maybe tomorrow she'll come back." Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. Emily was moved from one foster home to another, 4 homes in 1 year. Some families were nice, giving her warm meals and toys. Others shouted, ignored her, or made her work too hard. Every time she was told to pack her things, she asked the same question: "Did my mom call?" And every time, the answer was no. When Emily turned 10, she stopped asking. She learned how to hide her feelings. She smiled when she was told to, helped around the house, and stayed quiet. Inside, she built a small world, one filled with stories she made up in her notebook. In those stories, mothers always came back. At night, she would sit by the window and draw stars on the fogged glass. She named them Hope, Faith, and Promise. She whispered to them, "One day, someone will love me for real." One evening, something strange happened. It was winter, and snow covered everything like a white blanket. Emily, now 12, was living with a family named the Danvers. They weren't cruel, but they weren't kind either. They treated her more like a guest who overstayed her welcome. That night, as she looked out the window, she saw a black car stop outside the house. Its headlights cut through the snow, glowing softly. A woman stepped out. She had long brown hair and a red scarf. She stood there for a few seconds, looking straight at Emily's window. Emily froze. Her heart started to beat fast. The woman's face looked familiar. Her eyes were full of tears. She lifted her hand as if she wanted to wave, but then she turned away and got back into the car. The car drove off slowly, disappearing into the night. Emily ran to the window, her breath fogging the glass. "Wait," she whispered. "Wait, please." But the car was gone. For days, Emily couldn't stop thinking about that woman. Was she her mother? Why did she leave? Why didn't she come inside? She tried to tell Mrs. Danvers about it, but the woman just shook her head. "You probably imagined it, dear," she said. "People don't just show up after years." But Emily knew what she saw. Every night, she wrote in her notebook about that woman, the one with the red scarf. In her story, the woman was brave and kind. She didn't leave again. She came back and said, "Emily, I missed you every single day." But reality wasn't that kind. Years passed. Emily grew into a quiet teenager with sad eyes and a strong heart. She still carried the teddy bear, still kept the note in her pocket folded so many times the paper was turning yellow. She had learned one important lesson: the world doesn't stop for broken hearts. But somewhere deep inside, she still believed in something good, that maybe life had more planned for her than just pain. One day, at the foster school library, Emily found a small book called The Power of Never Giving Up. It told the story of a girl who lost everything but built her life again. She read that book 10 times. And for the first time, a spark of determination appeared in her heart. "I don't want to wait anymore," she whispered. "I want to change my story." That night, she made a promise to herself. No matter what happened, she would grow up and help other kids like her, kids who felt forgotten, kids who waited for someone who never came. The next morning, she looked at her reflection in the cracked mirror and smiled a little. Her eyes still held pain, but now, they also held hope. She didn't know it yet. But this little girl who once had nothing, no family, no home, no love, was going to become a millionaire one day. And not just any millionaire. She was going to use her success to give other lost children the home she never had. But for now, she was still that lonely girl, sitting by the window, waiting for the day when her life would finally begin. Outside, snow started to fall again, soft, quiet, endless. And somewhere in the distance, the black car appeared once more. Just for a moment. Then it was gone. Years passed, and little Emily Carter was no longer the scared child sitting by a window waiting for her mother. She was now 18 years old, standing in front of the foster home gate with a small backpack and a broken heart. Her foster care time was over. She had nowhere to go, no family to call, and only $200 saved from small cleaning jobs she did at school. Still, Emily whispered to herself, "This is not the end. It's just the beginning." She took a bus to the nearby city of Cleveland, Ohio. The city looked big, fast, and loud, full of people chasing something. Emily had never felt smaller. She found a tiny room in an old building. The walls were cracked, the bed was thin, but it was hers. Every morning, she woke up, looked in the mirror, and said, "You survived worse. You'll make it." She started working as a waitress in a small diner called Sonny's Cafe. The pay was low, the work was hard, but Emily was grateful. She smiled at every customer, even when her feet hurt from standing all day. Her manager, Rita, was strict but fair. "You've got good manners, kid," she'd say. "Keep working hard, and life might surprise you." But life didn't surprise her yet, it tested her. Some nights she skipped dinner so she could pay rent. Some days she walked in the snow because she couldn't afford the bus. And yet, Emily never complained. She would sit in the corner booth after closing, writing in her notebook stories, ideas, dreams. She wanted to start something one day, something that could help foster kids like her. One night, she drew a logo, a simple heart made from 2 hands, and wrote under it, "Hope Made, crafts with a purpose." She smiled. It was just a dream, but for Emily, dreams were everything she had. One cold evening, an older man started coming to the diner regularly. His name was Mr. Robert Johnson, a quiet man in his 60s with kind eyes and a warm smile. He always sat at table number 7, ordered black coffee and apple pie, and asked Emily about her day. At first, Emily was shy. But over time, she began to talk about her life, her foster homes, her small dreams. Mr. Johnson listened carefully every time, never interrupting, never judging. One night, when the diner was almost empty, he asked softly, "Emily, if you could do anything in life, what would it be?" She thought for a moment. "I'd build something for kids like me. A place where they can learn, earn, and feel wanted. I want them to know they matter." Mr. Johnson smiled, his eyes shining. "That's a good dream," he said. "Don't let the world take it away from you." A few days later, Mr. Johnson didn't come to the diner. Or the next day. Or the next week. Emily felt strangely sad. He was the only person who truly listened to her. Then one morning, Rita handed her a small envelope. "It's for you," she said. "Some old man dropped it off last week." Emily opened it with trembling hands. Inside, there was a handwritten note and a check. The note said, "Emily, you have something special. Don't waste it. Start your dream." And the check was for $5,000. Emily gasped. Tears filled her eyes. She looked at the bottom of the note signed simply, Robert Johnson. She couldn't believe it. A man she barely knew believed in her more than anyone else ever had. That night, Emily couldn't sleep. She sat by the window, the city lights blinking outside, and whispered, "Mr. Johnson, I won't waste it. I promise." The next morning, she quit her job at the diner and started working on her dream. She bought some fabric, ribbons, and handmade materials. In her small room, she turned the corner of her bed into a work table. She opened a small online store and named it exactly as she dreamed. Hope Made, Crafts with a Purpose. Her idea was simple: every product would be made by foster kids or young adults leaving foster care. Each item would carry a message of hope. She started making handmade bracelets with little heart charms. Each bracelet came with a tag that said, "Made with hope, by hands that once felt forgotten." At first, no one bought anything. Days turned into weeks. The website had no visitors. Emily tried everything: posting on social media, messaging small stores, but nothing worked. The money was running out. The bills were waiting. And the dream was fading. One night, she sat on the floor, tears streaming down her face. "Maybe I was wrong," she whispered. "Maybe people don't care." Just then, her phone buzzed. A new message popped up. It was from someone named Megan Brooks, a popular lifestyle YouTuber. The message said, "Hi Emily, I came across your online store. Your story touched my heart. I want to share it on my channel. Are you okay with that?" Emily's hands shook as she typed back, "Yes. Thank you so much." She didn't expect much. But 2 days later, Megan uploaded a video titled, "The Girl Who Turned Pain into Purpose." Within hours, Emily's story went viral. Hundreds of people started visiting her website. Orders began pouring in from all over the United States: bracelets, crafts, handmade gifts. Emails flooded her inbox, messages from people who said her story inspired them to never give up. Emily cried, but this time, her tears were full of joy. Her dream was finally real. She looked at the sky that night and whispered, "Mom, wherever you are, I hope you see me now." But as she closed her laptop, one new email appeared. Subject line, "I think I might be your mother." Emily froze. Her heart started to race. Could it be? After all these years, was it finally her? Emily stared at her laptop screen, her hands trembling. The subject line glowed on the screen. "I think I might be your mother." Her heart started beating faster. For a few seconds, she couldn't breathe. She clicked on the message. The email was short, just a few lines. "Emily, I've been searching for you for years. I saw your video online. I don't know if you can forgive me. Please, let me see you. Linda." Linda. That was her mother's name. Emily's eyes filled with tears. She read the message again and again, trying to believe it was real. After all these years, after all the pain, all the waiting, could it really be her? She sat frozen for minutes, then whispered, "Why now? Why after so long?" That night, Emily couldn't sleep. Her thoughts battled inside her head: anger, hope, fear, confusion. Part of her wanted to reply right away. Another part screamed, "Don't do it. She left you once, she can leave again." She picked up the old teddy bear she still kept, the one missing an eye. She pressed it close to her chest and whispered, "What if she's really sorry?" But she didn't reply that night. The next morning, Emily sat at her small work table, trying to focus on her orders. The online store was busier than ever. Hundreds of people were buying her products and writing kind messages. "Your story gives me hope. You are amazing, Emily. You inspired me to help foster kids." But even with all that love, Emily felt a deep emptiness inside. She looked again at the email, still unread, still waiting. Finally, she took a deep breath and typed back. "Hi. If you're really my mother, tell me something only she would know. Emily." Then she pressed send. For 2 days, there was no reply. Emily tried to stay busy managing her orders, talking to suppliers, thanking customers. But every few minutes, she checked her inbox. Nothing. Then, on the third evening, a new email appeared. It said, "When you were little, you had a teddy bear with one missing eye. You named him Charlie. You said he would keep you safe when I was gone." Emily's eyes filled with tears. Only her mother could have known that. Her hands shook as she typed back. "Where are you?" The reply came minutes later. "I live in Chicago now. I'd like to meet you only if you're ready." That weekend, Emily took a train to Chicago. She sat by the window, the countryside rushing past. Her heart was racing. "What will I say? What if I can't forgive her?" she thought. She looked down at the folded note she still carried. "I'll come back for you." For years, those words had been her pain. Now, they might become her truth. When the train stopped, Emily stepped onto the platform and saw her. A woman standing nervously near the exit, holding a red scarf. The same red scarf she had seen years ago outside the Danvers house. Their eyes met. Both froze. "Emily," the woman said softly. Her voice cracked. Emily nodded, tears already falling. "Yes, it's me." They walked toward each other slowly. Then suddenly, they were in each other's arms, crying like they'd waited a lifetime for that moment. "I'm so sorry," Linda whispered. "I never wanted to leave you. I was young, scared, and broke. I thought you'd have a better life without me. But not one day passed when I didn't think of you." Emily's voice shook. "I waited for you every night. Every time a car stopped outside, I hoped it was you." Linda cried harder. "I saw you once. Years ago. Outside your foster home. You looked so grown up, but I couldn't face you. I was too ashamed." Emily froze. "That was you? The woman with the red scarf?" Linda nodded. "Yes. I wanted to run to you, but I was afraid you'd hate me." Emily took a deep breath. "I did hate you, for a long time. But then I realized, holding on to hate only keeps me stuck. I built a life helping kids like me because I didn't want anyone else to feel that kind of pain." Linda wiped her tears. "You became everything I hoped you would. You turned pain into something beautiful." They sat in a cafe for hours, talking about the past, about their lives, about everything they had lost and found again. It wasn't easy. There were moments of silence, moments of tears, and moments of small laughter. But for the first time, Emily felt like her heart was healing. When they said goodbye, Linda held her hand and said, "Please don't disappear from my life again." Emily smiled softly. "I won't. But let's take it slow, okay? We both need time." Linda nodded, her eyes full of gratitude. That night, Emily returned to her small apartment. The city lights looked different, softer, warmer. She sat at her work table and whispered, "I finally found her. Or maybe, she finally found me." Then she opened her notebook and wrote a new line under her dream list. Step 2: build something bigger than hope made. Something that changes lives. She didn't know how yet. But she knew one thing: her story wasn't about pain anymore. It was about purpose. The next morning, Emily posted a message on her store's page. Hope is real. Even when life breaks you, don't stop believing. You never know what tomorrow brings. Thousands of people liked and shared it. But what Emily didn't know yet was that her story was just beginning. Because soon, the world would know her name. And she would use her success to help children who once stood where she did, alone, afraid, and waiting for someone to choose them. The weeks after meeting her mother felt like a quiet storm inside Emily Carter's heart. Every morning, she woke up thinking about that meeting, the tears, the hugs, the silence between words. For years, she had dreamed of this moment. But dreams are simple. Real life isn't. Some days, she felt peace. Other days, the pain returned, memories of the night she was left alone in the rain, holding her teddy bear. But still, Emily decided not to run away this time. She wanted to understand. Her mother, Linda, started calling her once a week. They spoke softly at first about small things. What Emily ate for lunch. How her online store was growing. How Chicago winters were colder than she remembered. But under every word, there was something unspoken, guilt and forgiveness dancing in silence. One night, during a phone call, Linda finally said, "Emily, I want to tell you everything. Please come visit me again. I owe you the truth." Emily hesitated for a moment, then agreed. "Okay, Mom. I'll come." It was the first time she called her mom in years. The word felt strange, but warm, like something broken being fixed piece by piece. When Emily reached Chicago, Linda met her at the train station. She looked nervous, holding flowers. "I didn't know what you liked," she said shyly. Emily smiled. "These are perfect." They went to Linda's small apartment. It wasn't fancy, just a cozy place filled with the smell of coffee and candles. On the wall were photos of people Emily didn't know, and one photo of her, taken when she was a baby. Emily stared at it for a long time. "You kept this?" Linda nodded, her eyes wet. "It's all I had left of you." They sat down, and Linda finally spoke. "I was 19 when I had you," she began softly. "Your father left before you were born. I tried to take care of you, but I had no money, no job, and no family support. Some days we didn't even eat. When you got sick, I panicked. I thought if I left you somewhere safe, someone would take care of you better than I could." Her voice broke. "I told myself I'd come back once I got a job. But life kept falling apart. Every time I tried to find you, the system had moved you somewhere else. Years passed. I failed you, Emily." Tears rolled down Emily's cheeks. She wanted to be angry, but her heart couldn't do it anymore. She looked at her mother, older, tired, full of regret, and saw not a villain, but a woman who had made a mistake and lived with the pain ever since. "You did fail me," Emily said honestly. "But you also gave me the strength to survive. I became who I am because I had to fight for myself. Maybe, that's what was meant to happen." Linda looked at her in surprise. "You're not angry?" Emily wiped her tears and smiled softly. "I was, for a long time. But anger doesn't heal anything. It just keeps you stuck. I'd rather forgive and move forward." Linda broke down crying. She reached for Emily's hands. "You are so much stronger than I ever was." Emily squeezed her hands gently. "Maybe because I had to be." That evening, they cooked dinner together, pasta and salad. It wasn't perfect, but it felt real. They laughed about small things, shared stories, and filled the silence that had lived between them for so long. When it was time to leave, Linda hugged her tightly and said, "Thank you for giving me another chance." Emily whispered back, "Thank you for coming back." After returning to Ohio, Emily felt something new: peace. Her heart was lighter. Her mind clearer. That night, She opened her notebook again. She looked at the words she had written before. Build something bigger than hope made. She thought about all the foster kids who never got a second chance. Kids who were still waiting, like she once did. Kids who didn't have a Mr. Johnson to believe in them. She wanted to change that. The next morning, she made a bold decision. She called her team, a few former foster kids she had hired for her online store, and said, "We're starting something new. A real place for foster youth to learn skills, earn money, and feel loved. A place where no one feels abandoned." They were shocked, but inspired. "What will we call it?" one asked. Emily smiled. "We'll call it New Beginnings. Because that's what life gave me, a second chance." Months passed, and Emily worked harder than ever. She held fundraisers, met with sponsors, and even shared her story on talk shows. Her message was simple. Every child deserves a chance to dream. Donations started pouring in. People from all over the country supported her mission. Finally, one bright morning, New Beginnings Center opened its doors, a safe home and skill center for foster teens. When Emily stood at the ribbon-cutting ceremony, reporters surrounded her. One of them asked, "Emily, what inspired all this?" She smiled, her eyes shining with tears. "A woman who left me, and came back. And a man who believed in me when I didn't believe in myself." Linda stood in the crowd that day, crying silently as she watched her daughter shine. That night, Emily and her mother sat outside the new center, watching the sunset. Linda said softly, "You've done something beautiful, Emily. You turned your pain into purpose." Emily looked at her and smiled. "Maybe that was always the plan. Maybe I had to be lost once to help others be found." They sat quietly, hand in hand, as the sun painted the sky in gold. For the first time in years, Emily felt complete. Not because she had money or success, but because she finally had peace, forgiveness, and love. But destiny wasn't done with her yet. In the months ahead, Emily would take one more step, a decision that would touch the hearts of millions and complete her life circle. She just didn't know it yet. 2 years had passed since Emily Carter opened the New Beginnings Center. What started as a small dream in a tiny apartment had now become a nationwide movement. Children from foster homes across the country came to her centers to learn skills, study, and rebuild their lives. Some learned art. Some learned business. Some simply learned how to believe again. Every morning, Emily walked through the halls filled with laughter and energy. The sound of hope. The sound she had once prayed to hear in her own childhood. On her office wall hung two pictures, one of Mr. Johnson, the kind man who gave her $5,000 to start her dream, and one of Linda, her mother, smiling proudly beside her. Every time she looked at those pictures, Emily whispered, "Thank you for being part of my story." Her online store, Hope Made, had grown too. It now supported hundreds of young artists from foster backgrounds. And with the profits, Emily built more centers in different cities and towns. Reporters called her the girl who turned pain into purpose. But Emily didn't care about fame. All she wanted was to make sure no child ever felt abandoned the way she once had. One afternoon, Emily was walking through one of her centers when she saw a small girl sitting alone by the window, knees pulled to her chest, tears on her cheeks. Emily recognized that look instantly. It was the same look she once had, the look of a child who had lost too much, too soon. She knelt beside the girl and asked softly, "Hey, what's your name?" The girl looked up with big, scared eyes. "My name is Lily." Emily smiled gently. "Hi, Lily. I'm Emily. Would you like to tell me why you're sad?" Lily hesitated, then whispered, "Nobody wants me. They say I'm too old to be adopted. I guess I'll just stay here forever." Emily's heart broke. Those words felt like echoes from her own past. She took Lily's hand and said quietly, "You're not unwanted, Sweetheart. Sometimes it just takes time to find the right people. But I promise you are loved, and you matter. Lily wiped her tears and whispered. You sound like my mom. Emily smiled, her eyes wet. Maybe because I used to wait for mine too. That night, Emily couldn't sleep. Lily's words kept echoing in her head. She looked around her empty house, big, beautiful, but quiet. She thought about the little girl at the window. And then, an idea touched her heart, an idea that made her cry and smile at the same time. The next morning, she called the director of the foster center and said, I want to adopt Lily. The process took months, papers, interviews, meetings, but Emily never gave up. And finally, one sunny afternoon, it became official. Emily walked into the foster home with a bouquet of flowers. Lily ran into her arms, laughing and crying at the same time. Are you really my mom now? She asked. Emily held her close and whispered. Yes, sweetheart. Forever. As time passed, Emily didn't stop there. She adopted 5 more children, each one with a story of pain and survival. Her home, once silent, was now full of laughter, music, and the sound of little feet running around. Each child called her mom, and each one reminded her of the girl she used to be, scared but hopeful. She often told them stories at bedtime. Stories not from books, but from her own life. Once there was a little girl who was left alone, she'd say. But instead of giving up, she built a new life. She found love again, not just for herself, but for others too. The kids would listen wide-eyed. One of them, little Liam, once asked, Mom, why did you choose us? Emily smiled, her eyes shining. She pulled them close and said, because once, no one chose me. And I promised myself that when I grew up, I'd change that for someone else. The children hugged her tightly. It was the kind of moment that healed every broken piece of her heart. Years later, Emily was invited to speak at a global conference about social change. She stood on stage, looking out at a crowd of thousands. She began softly. I was once a forgotten child, abandoned at a bus stop in the rain. I grew up thinking love was something I didn't deserve. But life showed me that pain can become power, and loss can become love. Today, I stand here not as someone who was saved, but as someone who chose to save others. The audience gave her a standing ovation. But the real applause came later, when she returned home to her children, who ran into her arms shouting, Mom's home. She laughed, her heart full, her eyes shining. That night, she sat by the window the same way she did as a child, watching the stars. But this time, she wasn't waiting for anyone. She was grateful. She looked up and whispered, Mr. Johnson, thank you. Mom, thank you. I hope you're proud. The stars seemed to twinkle brighter, as if answering her. Emily smiled, holding little Lily, who had fallen asleep beside her, and whispered, this is what love looks like. This is home. Sometimes, the people who go through the darkest nights become the ones who bring light to others. Emily Carter was once abandoned, but she turned her pain into a purpose that changed countless lives. Because when you choose love over hate, forgiveness over anger, and hope over fear, miracles happen. Sparkles the end, a true Hope Corps story. Sparkles.